Didn't realize it was that late. There we are.
So because I can see through this,
Yeah.
I can see the one I just did.
Right.
I can see how my grid line's going to be. Then if I put a second one down somewhere below here, maybe because I've already got some stains on the table. Oh, you can't see that. Can't see that either. Right there. Then I could go this way. I know where the lines are that are crossed, so that I can draw, say, if I wanted to do a building, and I can draw the windows in. I got a pretty good idea of where they're going to lay, because I can see through the ruler, I can see the other line. See? Anyway, that is the thinking.
Okay.
So that I can do 2 and 3 point perspectives with a big, heavy, thick ruler. We haven't really gotten into terrain or any of that. We haven't basically developed more than a couple of characters, so. But yeah, the advantages to that ruler over the metal one that I've had, and the advantage to the metal one is that I can hold it up at an angle and use a paintbrush to run along the edge. And it's not gonna, bend or warp or whatever. So, like, see if you've got your perspective point there and your perspective point there, and you wanted to draw a character, you know that it's going to be an upshot. If you wanted to draw him, like, jumping in for a landing or something. And you know his legs are going to get bigger as it comes down.
Hey, friend. I think Ephraim always waits for me to be doing something, and then he pops on.
And I'm sure he was just waiting for you to be doing something.
Yep, I'm sure that's what it was. He probably, sits and waits, just and then springs his trap.
I don't know. I think he took off when I told him about David streaming yesterday, or day before yesterday. So, yeah.
So, and again, for those who, all one of you watching, or if anyone decides to come back later on and wants to know what the heck's going on, so Rich and I are trying to develop a comic book on stream. So,
well, I wouldn't say we're trying. I said we're doing it. We're just not rushing.
Okay, we're gonna take Yoda's advice. Do or do not. There is no try.
Or Jack Kirby's in that it's not the tools, it's the person. If you really want to do it, you'll do it.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's one of those things I started noticing. Like I get students every year who say they're going to be a big YouTuber, they're going to be a big rapper, they're going to be yada, yada, yada. All right, cool. And, most of them, well, I've had one student, in I think 20 years, who has kind of, sort of gone on to do something in entertainment where she's kind of in front. There's the fitness marshals from Marion High School, if you know who that is. And it's kind of like I have always said he's the Richard Simmons of the YouTube generation. Anyway, one of his friends was one of my students. And she was a pretty bright student. So I say kudos for her. I don't think she ever intended on being a YouTube star, but she had the opportunity and she took it. Which I say, good job. But, when I hear these students saying these things, that they have these big lofty dreams, and I don't want to just, crap all over their dreams, but at the same time, I want them to be realistic. And I was trying to think about, all right, how do I split the difference between, being just a buzzkill and being supportive of something that could happen. And so I've thought about that for years. The other day, I came up with an idea, because I don't know about you, but I think I'm a writer, because it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm probably not more than a few seconds from having thought of a story or from thinking about a story. Like all those memes about, I bet he's thinking about some other girl. And I'm always like, not unless she's a character in my story. But if you're going to be it, whatever it is, you're going to do it no matter what, whether you're famous or not. And it's not an excuse to get out of things. It's just, you learn how to use like all these opportunities that you have to fulfill that thing. So I want to be a writer, so I do writer stuff. That doesn't mean I stop learning about science or anything else, or math, or I keep learning all those things because it helps my writing. And if you want to be a rapper, I think you're going to learn all kinds of things to help your rapping. And you're going to be doing it all the time.
Right. What you want to be is, directly is, it's in direct proportion to how easily you learn it.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, let's say that I think I'm going to be a basketball star. All right, cool. Am I playing basketball all the time? Because I better be, because the real stars are. And, am I playing every game as best as I can? Am I trying to learn all the time? Am I doing everything I can to become a basketball star? Yeah, if that's the stuff, then I would say there's a much greater chance of success. But what most people do is they see the things that the basketball star can buy, or the YouTuber can buy, or the rap star can buy, and they want those things.
Yeah, and YouTubers don't make the money that they think that they were making, because the paradigm has changed.
Right.
And the people that were making a lot of money on YouTube, sometimes they're not even making the money on YouTube that they were anymore, and they're complaining about it. So it just depends.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's something that they don't take into consideration. It's like, I hear all the time, like, because you use that as an example, I'm gonna expand on it.
All right.
That one of my sons was all like, well, so and so gets paid to play with toys on the internet. They get paid millions of dollars to play with toys on the internet.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But the thing is that so and so started that market. You know what I mean? There really wasn't a market for that before that, and
Right.
you may have 4 or 5 different breeds of that, but now because there's not the demand for the supply,
Right.
there's less people watching, so less people are pretty much patronizing them. So, like I was saying, yeah, PewDiePie plays video games. There's a lot of video game players out there. How many do you think people are going to watch? Sooner or later, you're going to reach your full limit. You can't watch anymore. There's nothing. There's either no more new stuff to watch, or you're going to be competing against an inordinate amount of people, right?
Right.
So, I mean, they don't take that into account. They think, oh, somebody else did it, so I can do it. But like, yeah, somebody else did it when there was nobody else doing it. That's what gave you the idea to do it.
That's one of those things where I look at it and I think, okay, the idea to play video games and stream it was a new idea at one point. And so they made hay while the sun was shining, and that's what they did. But if you really think about it, they were making something, a whole new form of entertainment, really. I mean, watching people.
Yeah, at the time.
And they had a creative mindset. It wasn't, oh, I just want to play video games. There was more to it than that. There is a lot more to it than that. And while that may be all right, that's the bulk of their content, they got to make that content. They got to be, they have to pick games that people want to watch. They have to be good enough or have comments. I mean, there's stuff that goes into
that's another thing too. Like when you say have comment, it's not comments. It has to have a personality. Right. Like we've been doing this for how long, and we're slowly climbing up in the numbers. We don't have a great viewership by any means, but sooner or later, we're hoping that the content proves out, because neither one of us are great entertaining personalities as far as being on camera.
Right.
Now, like, I might be able to be more entertaining when it comes to art. You might be more entertaining when it comes to writing, you see. But those are, I'm just saying, than the next guy, it doesn't have to be the most, but it's like you have to have something, and if you don't have something, you're not gonna be special as far as streaming. And I'm not saying you can't do anything, but I'm saying you got to be really special to be able to. You have to have something, some gimmick, something. Right.
Which is kind of why we decided, you know what? We see people talk about comic books. We see people, have, I don't know how they get away with it. I don't understand how that works, where they basically show an entire comic book, or at least a section of an entire comic book. They basically read to an audience someone else's work. How that is.
So that's a review thing. And you can't review, read the whole thing. You can only read parts of it. It's like if you're reviewing a video, you have to stop it every so often. You can't review a full movie, but you could review maybe a trailer, You could review somebody else's show, like somebody else's YouTube content show.
Right.
But you have to stop it every so often for commentary. You can listen to music, you can listen to a song, but you have to stop it so often for commentary, which is what you see when you see the reaction videos.
Right.
So that is the trick to reading comics and all that stuff online.
Well, even then, you sometimes because like I don't know if you heard of Rick Beato. He's done several videos. He's been a producer. But he would be like top 10 guitar riffs, and he'd play them. Like, it was him playing, but it was someone else's song, and he wouldn't play the whole thing. But if it was certain bands, automatic content strike. And he's fought them and stuff, and he's like, there's at some point it's just easier not to do it.
There is a. We were talking about this with J.K. Rowling. There is a. You can review or make commentary about something that's in the popular public eye.
Well, there's fair use.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like there's a certain amount that you're okay with for fair use, and then there's a certain amount that they don't give you. So
right, but
you just have to stay within that amount.
Right, but sometimes there are bands at least that they're happy to make the claim that a copyright claim, even if it's fair use and it's obvious.
Right. That's the thing, but you have to fight for it. So if somebody copyright strike me for playing music or whatever, and it was fair use, I could show that it was fair use to get that strike removed, and then I could countersue.
Yeah, if you have the funds and the time,
and there's so many lawyers right now that are fine with litigating for an outcome later.
Yeah.
I'm not advising that that's the way that anybody should do it, but I'm saying that you got to walk the line of where you're afraid and where you're cool. If you don't want to do that, if you're worried about or timid about copyright strikes or lawsuits, then you should absolutely not jump into something. Take a lot of time to know where you are at, or even make sure that they're cool with you using that stuff. Like, that's why I don't play regular band's music on my stuff, and instead of copyright free music that I have permission to use, because it's pretty much the same thing. Like, I have gotten permission from artists that don't care if I use their music, but they own the rights to the words and the music, but they don't own the rights to the recording.
Right.
So the company that recorded it owns the rights to the recording, so they could still strike me. There is that whole fair use thing, and then I could prove that I got permission from the owners of the music. And that's hard too to do for the whole owners of the music thing, because, say, for instance, Overkill is an example, because I got some permission to use Overkill's music from one of the bandmates, but first of all, they don't own the recordings, and second of all, the copyright holder may be more than one member of the band.
Right.
Like, I haven't used anything from Overkill because I haven't gotten a hold of the principal writer of the songs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I got a hold of one of them, the singer, and he was really good with it and kind of excited about the idea. And I just wasn't able to get a hold of the bass player who writes most of the music. So, and then it would have been, if record companies' rights are, or if they have certain rights or whatever. Because I'm not sure if those guys actually have their own recording stuff, like have their own company. Some guys set their own companies up. Mashayak is another band that I had permission from the principal writer. But he was saying that even though he owns the songs, it was a certain Australian label that owns the recording of them that I would be using. And that makes it difficult, right? Because not only do you have to get a hold of the people that own the copyright to the song, but own the copyright to the performance of the song that you're going to use. Which I never knew about any of that crap until I got started looking into it for the channel, right? But I didn't want to put anything on the channel until I knew exactly where I stood and what was cool, you know. Because first of all, I really didn't want to offend any of the bands because I really like the bands. It's the reason I would want to play them in the first place.
Right.
But, I mean, besides that, you know, you don't want to get struck playing music that you're hoping that will maybe sell more for that band, right? And
right.
You'd think by now that the record companies would have caught on because they're losing so much money nowadays. Because due to piracy, due to things that are published online, due to artists not having to have record companies to publish their own stuff anymore, right? So you would think that they would be good with it. But they're jealous over it still, so. Alright, so I'm not going to go too far into this. This was just showing you, like, once I've got that perspective, then I'm drawing the character in perspective too.
Okay, so that's actually kind of interesting because, like, the way you're drawing the character is not the way I would have drawn. Like,
well, yeah, because it's the point of view that we're at.
Well, I get that, but just, I mean, I don't know. It's just like, I just know how I would have done it. And I'm not saying it would have been better in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply saying drawing the perspective, the lines of perspective for a figure is not something that I'm really used to.
So I'm not just drawing the perspective grid for the figure. I'm drawing the perspective grid for the scene.
Okay.
So the figure is in the scene, and in order to make him feel like he's cemented in the scene, we're going to have the same vanishing points. He's going to have the same taper. Like, if this is a building, these are windows or whatever.
Right.
Then this just feels like he's coming up into that scene, right?
Okay.
It's just cementing him in the scene.
Well, I believe you. I mean,
Well, I'm showing you,
just...
and that's the point of what I'm doing. What I'm illustrating is
I mean, like, the buildings and vanishing points make perfect sense. That's normally how it's taught. You know, and actually, my father taught me long before I ever had an art class about, you know, drawing your perspective like that. But, yeah, just the way you kind of set up the character. I suppose because knowing me, I would have started with the subject of the picture, which is generally the character. Um, and then I would have put the background. Like the background would have been kind of secondary for me. That's the thought process in my brain. Not that I'm saying it's right, just that's what I would have done.
Well, that is what we all do wrong when we start, because it's not really the main subject; it's the action that's the main subject.
Okay.
But
And by the way, I agree with everything you just said, but I would not have thought about that even 10 years ago.
And this is what I'm saying is that it's the difference between somebody who's trying to learn to do this and someone who is just drawing for the love of drawing or whatever. You think about the background afterwards, but so if you're writing a script, right, and you're telling me if you're telling me in the script that you want him jumping down from a building, then I have to construct that scene around that action. So, like, if the first.
So Aaron was saying that he learned a lot about drink. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. I'm basically and to a point, but I'm just saying I'm composing the scene. Like this would be panel construction. You're compose the whole panel over what's taking place, what needs to be in it. Writers sometimes make the mistake of trying to do a couple of things in one panel, which you can have dialogue doing a couple of things in a panel, but you can only show one solid image for that statement.
Right.
So the panel construction, the way you design the characters and the way you design the buildings and all that, this isn't even really complete in the buildings. It's just giving that idea
where they're going to be, sort of.
Right. Well, see, once we know that there's a vanishing point here and there's a vanishing point over this way, then you know that if he's coming down, this is the main vanishing point that he's using. Anything that's becoming this way will be the level of where his foot is on the bottom of his foot, or that the line for that building, the top line for that building. So the written page you're transferring it to an image on the panel, and you're trying to tell the story through the image.
Yeah.
So that even if there were no words, you can kind of get the gist of what's going on through that image.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be a deeper experience with the words. And I've seen comic books that if they didn't have the words, the story would be gone. Because they had two different parallel stories going on. One of them visually and one of them verbally. But whatever you give me on a page, whatever you give me for one page of script, I have to employ to so many panels, and I have to put whatever you put on that script in those panels. So I'm the director. I'm like co-director, I guess you could say, but mostly the artist is the director. You're deciding where you want the shot to take place from and all that. And unless the writer is specific on one or two panels, and usually good writers choose like one or two panels to really focus on and just describe the action in the other ones. So that's why you lay a grid out first. Especially if you're going to do 2-point, 3-point perspective. So you see a vanishing point here, but this isn't.
Okay.
Well, there's multiple vanishing points, and then you've got an horizon line.
Right.
You don't see horizon line because the horizon line's way down here.
Right.
And that informs where the character is, because the horizon line is from the viewer of the panel. It is supposed to be your eye's view or my eye's view. So the horizon line is way down below this, then it dictates how you're going to draw the character, how you're going to show the character. And to set him clearly in the scene of perspective. So horizon line's part of the perspective, and the vanishing points are part of the perspective as well. I guess that's all I have to say on the matter that way. This was just to show you why I went out and bought a new ruler. I mean, really, because I bought a new ruler so that I could see through it, so that I could set all this stuff up while I'm drawing. And if you're painting, generally you're taught to paint from back to front, right? You're taught to paint from whatever is furthest away to whatever is closest. At least in acrylic and oil and all that, generally that's the theory.
I don't worry about that. Kind of, sort of.
Well, they don't tell you like you paint the sky first and then you come forward to the whatever's the next step in front of the sky, and then whatever's the next step in front of that.
It just depends on. I mean, like with watercolor, for example, it's really more about you need to do your light stuff first, whatever's the lightest, because the dark stuff you can't paint over. So it's.
I found that I could, just not white.
Okay, but.
Well, you can lighten up the values because you can add white to anything.
Yeah. It's still, I think, a good idea to start with your lights and then go into your darks. I think you'll end up with a lot less a lot fewer problems. So, but with oil, you don't really have to worry about that. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that it's a bad idea or anything. I don't know if I would have to worry about it. Aaron popped on, which, by the way, hi, Aaron, or Eek the Chat, whatever. And I posted his comment up on your screen for a while because he said he learned a lot about drawing from Commander Mark, which I sat with Aaron and watched that. I know what he's talking about. Did you ever see Commander Mark, Rich?
Probably not, or...
So Commander Mark was this... He would just, he drew stuff, and he would, it's kind of it's kind of the artist version of some other educational show, but it was definitely there. He would draw stuff and kind of show you how to draw stuff. Kind of broke it down in that, you draw the circle and then you draw, all that kind of thing, and then it, becomes something after a while. But yeah, I remember those were good times, simpler times, back before the internet, or at least before the internet was available to most people. Aaron, I'm going to have to message you on Facebook later. I think I'm going to be up in town Saturday, which, by the way, Rich, the funeral for my mother-in-law is Saturday, so I don't think I'll be available that night because I don't know if I'll be home. But I might be available for you, Aaron, because it's in Syracuse, and to some degree, I have permission to bugger off. So, after the funeral, that is. In case anyone watches this and thinks that I'm a terrible human being because I didn't go to my mother-in-law's funeral. I plan on going to my mother-in-law's funeral. It's the after part where my wife's family, and they'll want to talk more with each other than with me. So I haven't seen Aaron in quite a while. I've actually seen family out in Oklahoma City more often than I've seen Aaron. And Aaron's only 2 hours, not even 2, it's like 90 minutes. Thanks, Aaron.
So I realized
Uh-oh.
I have a sketch. I have a sketchbook that a friend of mine gave me about a week
That's
or
what I was
so
going to
back.
buy at Walmart. I was going to buy a sketchbook.
About a week or so back, and it's a leather bound sketchbook, and it's got like a tree of life engraved on it in the lock. And so like I opened it and I noodled on it one day when my wife was doing something and I was waiting on her.
Yeah.
And I was pretty much drawing a scene from something that I was working on elsewise.
Yeah.
And never came to fruition. And it was just kind of noodling out of thought. But then as I got going, I realized that it would be a better character than what I drew to suit our main character's purposes.
Oh, okay.
And now I'm trying to think of a way to explain it without giving everything away, right? But
no, it's fine. I mean,
I don't think that's gonna ever happen.
I say, go for a character design if you think this one's better.
Well, so what is better about this is, remember, like one of the keys is that he's able to change his visage.
Right.
And like you were saying, the other drawings, these ones, look more like guards.
Well,
so,
in particular, the first one, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same thing. They're the same thing. They're just a different, more expansive in the clothes setup. But
yeah, okay.
So I got to thinking that these do kind of look like a military outfit, which is not far off of what we were talking about, but they look like they're either a form of stormtrooper, which that's not exactly what I was looking for. Okay. Or it just, I don't know, the more I thought about it, the more I thought that they look like they are either military guards or something like that. So I thought, well, we'll keep this design, I'll hang on to it. But the other one that I had almost an owl type face, like snowy owl type face, where you can see the eyes and you can see a little tiny area where the nose would be, or a beak, and then the rest of it's kind of the heart-shaped face, right? But it's a blank face.
Okay.
So that would make it easier. It's almost like a Spider-Man mask, except for there's key factors marked out on it.
Okay.
And that way it could change color, size, shape as needed.
Okay.
And
Have we? Are we gonna? The name of the character, which we haven't officially settled on. Are you okay
the
talking
name of the
about
character, the name of the character, or name of the
not his
his code
personal
name or
name,
job?
his job name?
Yeah, I guess to a point. I mean,
Okay.
like we're still defining it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Okay,
You know
that's
what
fine.
you know what I mean. So like,
Yeah, I just
for those that
as,
don't know,
as,
we're still kind of working some stuff out.
oh
But
yeah,
we're pretty close to, I think,
right. I just think that
done with
sometimes we
one
want to play.
done with one character.
Well, I mean, but also part of it is that I understand the urge to kind of play things close to the chest because we're putting this out there publicly, and you got to worry about people stealing ideas. But this is all time stamped.
I was actually thinking about that. If this isn't evidence of what date we created it,
Right, exactly.
To prove that we created it,
right,
then I don't know what is.
So
because it will have a timestamp,
right,
when it's saved on YouTube.
Right. So
now we just need to be able to make sure that it's archived.
Yeah. Also, it would make it real easy, if we're going through and we're talking about this. You never know. You're opening up yourself for checking before you finalize things, sort of.
Right.
So, yeah, I remember when we were going to make our own comic book. I mean, it was a while ago, and I don't remember what it was about anymore, but I remember doing it. Oh, that's why this is kind of fun. But, I mean, that's kind of the thing with being willing to talk about some of the aspects and recognizing we may change stuff, because that's part of the process. But it also allow, like if Aaron was watching and we say something like, oh yeah, this is a great name, and it means there are more people be able to say, isn't that the whatever from this? Oh, in case you thought you had some awesome name, like because you were going on about the was it operative?
Yeah, the operative.
Yeah, we were like, oh, that's a great one. Then we looked it up. Yeah, there's there. I was like, oh crap. So that just means more people can check us. But
well,
so
we didn't do this without looking into it. So
well, yeah, we looked into some of the stuff, obviously. But
and
talking about some of this might be what I mean. Again, we're showing the process, and so if we do all of the creative part, off stream, kind of defeats the purpose. But
right, well, some of it, that's what I said to a point, because like it's not so much. I mean, there is the factor of somebody will go, that's a great idea, and try to beat us to the punch, but they won't beat us to the point that we've already recorded what the idea or the basic of the idea is.
Right.
I wouldn't try to give away the plot.
Oh, I'm not going to do that.
Because that's
in fact,
something.
Actually, technically, I can kind of. I mean, I don't even have to necessarily use the title or the characters thing. Like, I mean, I wanted to talk about it just because.
So basically, what we're beating around is that he's an exfiltrator, an extractor.
Right. So.
In the future.
I looked up.
In a dystopian environment.
Yeah, because it doesn't actually technically have to be in the future. It could just be somewhere else. But we haven't settled that much.
No, we pretty much settled it was the future. Because if not, we'd be backtracking.
Okay, it's the future.
We've said that there's there might be more than one type of city. So we talked about city states, and I don't think that's giving anything away either.
Right.
Giving anything that's not going to be given away like in the first few pages or whatever.
Right.
But the city states, they're not going to be all the same type of city states. Right. Some of them going to be a little bit more primitive. Some of them going to have different value systems, currency.
So it's a big world for us to play in, but
with a lot of possibilities.
Right.
And two writers.
So we were talking about Exfiltrator, and and part of this comes down to trying to get the vision right? So, and you were like, I think you're misunderstanding, and I'm like, I don't think I'm misunderstanding. So then I start like, am I misunderstanding? So I went and looked up Exfiltrator just to make sure. Let's make sure. And yeah, I was right. And I'm not saying that your character was wrong or anything that you said was wrong. It's just like where we focus on the definition was different, because I was focusing, like every one of the definitions talked about furtive. That was the word they kept using, furtive. And I'm like, in fact, I was like, do I not understand what furtive is? So I went
well, see,
furtive.
The irony is that there's not really a word exfiltrator. There's a word there's a word exfiltrate, and the position normally is called an extractor, which is what I learned in the course of research, because we looked up the title Exfiltrator, and there's not a title Exfiltrator, but there's one novel that has that title.
Well, so I'm just saying. So it's just one of those things where I was doing research, just making sure I got my words right and everything like that. And then I was thinking back on the original two drawings, and I said that first one looked more like a soldier or a guard. And yeah, it was like, that guy does not look like he would be furtive. And the hooded guy, by virtue of nothing more than the hood, just seems a little shadier, some more furtive, at least to me, visually speaking.
You ever seen the movie Extraction?
With who?
Chris Hemsworth.
Was it a like a Netflix one?
Yep.
I've seen part of it, and then I was like,
there's in neither one of them is he dressed like somebody else. He's dressed like a soldier in every one of them.
Well, I mean, that's
so.
Great
hold on. No, it's great for its purposes. Its purposes is he's a soldier going in to take somebody out. So, if you're military, you would definitely have a different approach to exfiltration as you would if you were CIA. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
CIA or MI5, CIA spies, whatever, spies versus military. Both of them extract people from the field. They have two totally different ways of doing it. So,
and I'm not negating any of that. I'm
just saying that's where we were. You were on one, and I was on the other. That's all.
Okay, and that's where that furtive part comes in. Like, I focus more on that part, and you're not. That's all I was getting at. That it was.
But I'm.
That first, trying to avoid confrontation, being furtive, and again, getting in, getting out. There's multiple ways of doing it, and both of them. Again, if you have a small team, you cannot take on a large force. You've got to do it in a way that gets in and out discreetly until you cannot be discreet any further, and then you move. I get it, but you're still looking for element of surprise and things that fall under furtive, and it's a more military, more gung-ho way, but it still has to start off being relatively discreet. That's where the furtive part comes in. And where we are on the two sides of that, there's still neither one's more right than the other. It was just I was trying to figure out when we looked at the original pictures, especially when the first one looks much more like the more military version versus
Right.
CIA version.
Right.
And I'm like, and really a hood? Is it really all a hood?
And I actually want to be somewhere in between, I think.
Yeah, okay. And I'm okay with, yeah, I was just, the first guy was on an edge of the spectrum that was farther along than I wanted it necessarily to go. Like I wanted it somewhere further back than just straight on soldier. Does that make sense? And I think you do too. That's kind of what I was trying to figure out why one worked for me versus one did not work for me.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying if I can express that to you after figuring it out to myself as to why one works, because it's going to be really hard to explain it.
We don't have a dispute. You're good.
Right. I'm just I think that
this is what I'm doing right now.
Right.
Actually, so this is exactly what I'm talking about and exactly what I'm redesigning it for.
Right.
Is because we talked about, and this is only going to be for the older people among us. Maskatron from the $6 Million Man TV show, and it's not exactly Maskatron, but the idea of being able to change your face at will. It's also, as kind of you alluded to, is it's also a little bit like Mission Impossible, except for that you don't have to go through the programming and all that crap. It already takes visual input, or it already has visual memory to be a good disguise in certain cities that it's been in. So what basically I was saying is that when I was sitting there looking at my sketchbook, and it was yesterday, my wife wanted to shovel something, and we went to look at a puppy. Oh yeah. And so before we went to look at the puppy, she has a part-time job shoveling snow.
Okay.
She gets a crazy rate for shoveling snow that this person pays her. And so I had to wait a couple of minutes for her to do that before we went to see the dog.
Yeah.
So I, picked up the sketchbook and started sketching, finishing sketching. Actually, I think that's half.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, like I was finishing sketching it, and I was like, I had just a real loose figure swinging in a kick. Like it was, I was trying to draw like almost a Spider-Man pose where a guy had his arm down and he was swinging his leg up into a kick, right? And the other leg was kind of folded back. And I realized I'd roughed out the muscles and I didn't do anything for the head. And as I'm sitting there messing around, I'm kind of going through uh, going through the head to try to get some. I was marking out, oh, this is where the hairline should be, and this is where the eyes should be, and all that. And then because I marked it out and with a rougher pencil and didn't have an eraser, I almost had this mask effect. And I got to thinking, Maskatron, mask, it has a little bit of the feel of the Phantom. Because of the heart-shaped, overall mask. Like the face opening. Except for it's not really a face, it's just a white blank space. You see what I mean?
Right.
And so there's eyes in it. And there's just a little marker where the nose is. And where the cheeks go. But there's no mouth. And I'm starting to look at it and I was like, that would be like it's like a drawing grid for a computer to lay a face on, or an organic element, or whatever we want to do. But so instead of drawing this elaborate mask and suit, I got to thinking that we're talking about Jason Bourne. Do you remember what the important thing about Bourne was? What he went to surgery for and all that in the book?
I have no idea. Because that would have been at least 15 years ago.
This is the point, and it's pretty good.
Okay.
He went into surgery to make his face plain. So he was as nondescript as you could get. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So if you're nondescript, people have a hard time remembering you.
Yep.
They have a hard time remembering your face. Well, if you don't actually have a preset face, and you have what looks like a completely average build, that fits in with what you were talking about with furtivity.
Yeah.
Furtiveness.
There you go. I'd go with that one.
Is it furtiveness or furtivity? You have the availability to look this shit up. I'm just drawing.
I think it's furtiveness, but furtive. Yeah, that's the one. Furtiveness.
Okay. So yeah, I think this is a better idea for it. Like there's certain things that he's gonna have to have.
Yeah.
To be able to thrive in the elements if he needs to.
Yeah.
Between city-states. So he can't be without some protection.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I had suggested a hooded poncho. Because I thought, well, if you're out in the elements, that's a pretty good, and it would hide, because it's bulky and flowy, could help hide armaments, I guess.
Well, so we were talking about particular types of armaments that are going to be involved.
Right.
So, yeah. I don't want to get too involved in that, but
that's fine. I'm just
so
that's
like I'm trying to make a more plain Jane layout for him.
Yeah.
I think that he's gonna have boots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not gonna have like underpants. You know what I mean?
Oh, the original superhero.
The superhero underpants, right? But they are going to be a uniform. I don't want to say spandex because it's not spandex, but they're going to be a material that is very pliable and has some type of return to basic setup. Like not memory foam, but memory whatever. So yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that this character needs something adaptable, and I think a lot of the important elements for him will be some camouflage, right?
You're right.
And armor. But nowadays, like we're talked about different types of possible futuristic armor, right?
Right.
I think this guy's a little bit lankier than I want him to be. But I don't want him to be overly built, because we want him to be a believable everyman, right?
Yeah.
But we'll change that to a believable athletic everyman. Well, athletic, not bodybuilder, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. You need more swimmer than boxer.
Well, more boxer than bodybuilder.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily need... I mean, boxers... I would say MMA is fine.
I was thinking heavyweight. I want to get like...
If you see pretty much any MMA fighter, unless they're got packed on weight, then they're pretty much, if you see them in regular clothes, you're not gonna go, oh, he's big built muscle dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want him as thin as McGregor, but also I'm not trying to do Kimbo Slice either.
Right.
So yeah, it's so often you see like Batman drawn as like fucking Schwarzenegger slipped the clothes on. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want to have that, but I don't want him to look like he's just a stick figure. Bruce Lee is really, really thin. Like, and this is weird. I'm just looking down at this figure and seeing how thin this figure is, and I'm thinking, if you've ever seen like Enter the Dragon, where he's kickboxing in black swim trunks,
Yeah.
he is very, very thin.
Oh yeah.
And his legs are thin.
Um,
So I think maybe that's a little bit thin for what I'm looking for.
Aaron said Firefly from G.I. Joe, which was a gray guy. He has a gray suit, camouflage, kind of looked like, if I remember correctly, kind of looked like one of the ninjas. I don't know how well you know the characters from G.I. Joe, Rich.
Yeah, like not really. A little bit. I wasn't a super big, huge fan of G.I. Joe. I obviously know Snake Eyes and most of the main characters, but
I thought G.I. Joe kind of was, which is kind of stupid because it's such a sci-fi military thing, but when everyone started to become a ninja, I was just like,
right.
okay.
Snake Eyes was original, and then Snake Eyes, I guess, and Storm Shadow were okay because you had to have that
Yeah.
arch enemy,
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know, I didn't really get too much beyond that because by that time, I'm sure that's the age gap between you and I.
Yeah, probably.
Is that by that time I was into probably more movie stuff than cartoon stuff.
Well,
And I don't know about as far as comic book goes because I never really followed the comic book.
well, Aaron, if you're still there, you can correct me, but I'm pretty sure Aaron has the entire run. Because they canceled it at one point. I think they brought it back, but yeah.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, I mean
And
Larry Hama had control of that for a long time.
well, it's just
And he drew G.I. Joe for a long time. He wrote G.I. Joe for a long time.
well, it's just one of those things that I mean. So I've read the comics rather like that was just one of those things that I mean we did all that stuff, so some of those character ideas kind of worked, but there was one I was actually thinking about, and I don't remember what issue it is, but like it has no words in it whatsoever.
I bet you that's the Larry Hama one. Remember when Go ahead.
Well, because it has something to do. Because again, it's been a few decades, but it has, I think, Snake Eyes kind of like flying in, like on a, I want to say like a hang glider or something. There's a building. He's kind of peeking through windows, and I don't know, but it was kind of a neat. I never, I mean, no words is kind of a weird thing. So, and it worked.
Give me a second. I'm going to look up an issue of Wolverine for you. So Larry Hama was in the Warriors.
Aaron, we were actually talking about some of those original Wolverines
So
last week.
Larry Hama and Andy Kubert did quite a few GI Joes too. But they did a Wolverine that's one of my favorite all-time Wolverines. All right, it is Wolverine number 102. And what's such a cool thing about that comic book is that
Wait, what was the number?
102,
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's 102. That's what it's showing.
That's fine. I just.
Yep. No, I just wanted to make sure. Because sometimes when you do a search, it'll show a different image than what you thought you were looking at. Yeah, it's 102. So anyway, that comic book is Wolverine. His story doesn't have any words. He's just going through this city, gazing and looking and hunting and sniffing the air and all this kind of stuff. And there's somebody else telling a story in the caption boxes, right?
Yeah.
They eventually it converges at the end, but there's this little girl telling a story, and Wolverine's looking for this little girl the whole time. So, but it's just such a well done effect that, you know, like when you're talking about that with G.I. Joe, and Larry Hama was, you know, he was, I think, editor for G.I. Joe and artist and writer for a long time. If you look up Larry Hama, Hama, G.I. Joe, or G.I. Joe Run, you'll see it's probably pretty huge. Because he's really, really known for G.I. Joe.
So, Aaron said G.I. Joe 21 was the silent issue. Snake Eyes had a parachute. And Storm Shadow started the comic on a powered collider.
Okay.
That is the one. And yeah, I think it's called the silent issue.
Yeah, so it just reminded me. Is it Larry Hama that's writing that? I bet it was. I bet it was. If I lose money, it would be a good loss because he wrote so many of them.
Oh yeah, there it is. Right. Oh, come on, go faster.
We need a bigger comic following in the audience.
Larry Hama.
Who drew it?
Oh man, I just clicked
Why
off.
Why would you do that?
Because it was slowing my stuff down.
It could have been Larry Hama too.
The running Twitch and StreamYard and all the other tabs that I have going does not like that website. Larry Hama with the plot and breakdowns.
Okay, so don't close it out because there's other people involved in that. Then breakdowns are usually like pencils and or even loose pencils, but plot could be he came up with the story and then somebody else actually wrote it.
Steve,
Wachowski?
no, Leilola.
Leola.
Leilola. Anyway, Steve Leilola art.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't surprised that Larry Hamill would be behind that. Because, like I said, that's one of my favorite issues of Wolverine. Just because of the novelty of it, but apparently now it's less of a novelty, right? Because he's done it with G.I. Joe. So.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, for me, G.I. Joe, the comic books generally were better than anything else. And the comic book storylines were more adultish, I guess. They were kind of more. They had more intrigue, and you had.
Well, yeah, because we're talking about it's either that or the cartoon. Cartoons aren't made to be adultish.
Right, but the cartoons had the. Is probably where I first was introduced to the special item where you had to, you have to get this piece, then you have to go get that piece, then that piece, and then put it together and go fight your big bad guy. It was the G.I. Joe franchise on the cartoon thing that kind of did that for me.
Okay.
And then the Serpentor storyline was definitely kind of influential, just with its. They're going to take DNA from all these great warriors and stuff, and make this. They're supposed to be the perfect warrior. And he ends up taking over the entire organization. It was just a neat concept to me. And it's like, oh, that's a really neat idea. Those are the kinds of things that kind of, get you interested in story and I just think there's an influence. But,
all right.
what I think is funny is when it came to the G.I. Joe toys, I think what really kind of put them over the edge for me was the files on the back, the character profiles. And I was at GameStop a couple months ago, and they were selling these new, more articulated, bigger toys from G.I. Joe. And I figure I'm probably the prime market for that. Middle-aged male trying to relive his youth, but none of them had the profile cards on the back. And I was like, well, I don't care. I don't need a doll. I want the
You just lost my
profiles.
sale.
Yeah.
You would have had me, but no.
Well, because each one would just always had all these possibilities for story. I mean, I thought those were great. Did you ever read the Hellfire series in the X-Men comics?
Oh, I read so many X-Men comics back in the day.
So, is that a yes?
Well, that would be at least part of it.
The Hellfire. Well, hold on a second. Let me see. Yeah. What's the easiest way? What's the easiest? I suppose I can share another screen, right? I can just do that. I have powers like that. Once I remember how to. Oh yeah, present. Yeah. I'm going to present something here, so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. Okay.
Yeah, but it's going to be a minute because I'm trying to straighten this out a little bit.
Okay. Well, you just let me know when you're ready. I can.
Well, you can put it up. I'm still trying to straighten this out, and don't know when I'm going to be happy with it. Just put it up, and I'll look up.
Okay, I'm finding it. Yep. So this is the generic guard from the Hellfire Club that I put up on your screen.
Yeah, you gotta enlarge it.
I have to enlarge this part. Oop, nope.
No, I didn't enlarge it. You should have been like, she should have picked one picture and just enlarged that.
Oh,
Shared
well.
that. Okay.
I'm just showing you, just because in its current stage, there we go. Anyway, it was looking similar to me.
Well, it's gonna look similar.
Okay.
There's no original. Like I said, they don't have this. They don't have that widow's peak going on in there.
Okay.
And they don't have the whole line across there. They have a different thing through here. And I'm not done. I'm still kind of dressing them out.
Right. I just was look kind of like one of the Hellfire guards at this point. That's how you
You've got to
kind of
remove
what
that.
that. Ah,
Just close the window out.
I did, didn't I? Oh, yeah. No, I did not. No. There you go.
Yeah, so what I did was just build out a framework. I am definitely not done with it because there's things that I want to employ, and they're not gonna have. He's not gonna have a symbol up on his chest and all that shit.
That's fine.
Well, I'm just saying, like, there's going to be differences, but you're going to find similarities anytime you're going to do a comic book anything. You're not going to be able to complete or create a completely original anything. The costume's going to be like some other pre-existing costume. There's no way to avoid that. What you do is you try to make it yours, right?
Right.
So, like, I may not eventually be doing all this, the muscle tone in here. I may change the size of the muscle tone. So what we've got is a utility belt. We've got utility cuffs, for lack of a better word. And we're going to have boots, but they're going to be, I want them to be more of a military type of a boot. Or, you know, something that would read as something you would wear in terrain no matter who you were. But I'm just right now kind of laying out the basics. I wanted to show you what I was thinking face wise, or lack of face wise. I guess I remember the Hellfire Club more for the members of the Hellfire Club, not the generic guard.
Well, the funny part is, well, there are a couple. The Hellfire Club, that run was I think around there. I was really into the X-Men at that point. Like I ate that shit up. And so, I mean, like, you know,
I got into the X-Men with the Brood.
Well, with everyone always wants to do the Phoenix saga, and I'm like, whatever, just do Hellfire. Do it right, do it well, and it's I love it. I just love the whole concept, just everything. I loved it. So there's that, and then I don't know why, but I was looking something up. It might have been Wolverine. I don't know what I wasn't looking up the Hellfire Club or anything. I don't think I was, but they popped up for some reason, and I was like, oh heck yeah! Just because I just always liked the Hellfire Club, and so I was looking more at that artwork and whatever. Wasn't really doing research for this. Was just whatever. And then as you were drawing, all that stuff converged to that kind of looks like one of the Hellfire Club guards. So then I thought I should just let you know. in case. Well, obviously, we just don't want to copy anyone. So, and I'm not saying that you are. I'm saying this
That's
is a look.
because you can see I'm not.
Right. It's one of the. They have a mask that kind of does what our mask is doing.
This mask is based on a snowy owl.
Well, and
so that's out there right now.
I know.
Nobody can say anything else because that's what it is. That's what I've based it on.
I was, yeah. I was thinking about, like, when I was looking at the pictures again, I was like, oh yeah, that's so they had a bunch of people you could go kill. I mean, they're just cannon fodder. And
Really?
well, I mean, like they're stormtroopers of the Hellfire Club. So yeah, they're there so you can kill them. They don't want to make them too humanish. They like, this way easier if you give them a mask. It's easier to draw. It's because they can all be basically the same over and over and over again. And then also it's it's a separation from your audience with the victim of this violence. You don't have to feel bad about this guy's probably got a wife and kids at home somewhere, and you're just slaughtering them.
I don't think anybody thinks of the bad guys in comics as having wives and kids.
Well, maybe they should. So.
Well, maybe they should, but they generally don't. No one's going, oh, Spider-Man killed Kraven, but Kraven had a wife and kids. And,
right. I know for some
what
movies.
What about Sandman's girlfriend? Or
some of the cartoons that they would do, you couldn't have them killing people, not, but you can destroy androids and you can just,
oh, yes,
there are certain things.
That's the Ninja Turtles theory, dude. Because if you read the original Ninja Turtles, the Foot Clan weren't robots.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I was just recognizing that the guards were there, so someone you can just cut through over and over again, and you don't have to feel bad. And you don't have to come up with a new character design every time. Right. So, it's a smart move.
And this isn't like a serious pose or anything. I'm just trying to lay it out so that
it's a character design thing. It's not an action pose.
Right, but that's kind of where I was screwed up before. So that I kind of laid them out so that it was them doing something and not a basic. So you failed to mention that you were wanting to make a comic book at one time.
Oh, I think I've told you about how, I forget the name of the series, but there was a Marvel series for the characters they had supposedly killed off. They were just bios of the dead characters. And I spent quite a bit of time, trying to learn how to draw comic book characters from that stuff.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me you were interested in making the comic. That
Well,
never came up when I said, "Hey, you want to help? you want to?
well,
Do
you
you want
said,
to?
"Hey, do you want to help?" And I said,
You want
"Yeah."
to work on this with me?"
And I said, "Yeah."
But you weren't like, "Oh, well, I was wanting to do this for a long time." I'm not saying it was a major secret. I'm just saying it was withheld.
Okay. I thought the answer in the affirmative was.
Well, that was an answer, but it didn't give me background.
I thought it kind of implied the fact that I was interested.
It didn't imply that you were interested in doing it for a long time.
Oh, okay.
You're avoiding just saying, yeah, I didn't tell you.
I didn't tell you.
Like it took a friend coming on to tell me.
See, Aaron knew my older brother before I was born. My
So
brother
that
and I.
means he's not a friend?
No, I'm saying that my brother and I are only about 3 years apart. So,
I actually don't know anything about your brother.
well, he's older.
Well, yeah, I know that now because you just said it's 3 years apart. Well, I guess because you just said he's older. You technically didn't say well, how apart until then.
In fact, as a parent, one of my earliest memories is my brother had gone over to Aaron's house, which was across this field. I mean, there are several houses in between the two houses now, but at the time it was pretty much an empty field. And I decided I was going to go too, and just marched over there, knocked on their door. And I didn't even know if I had the right house. Oh, I mean, it's literally one of my earliest memories. So, Aaron's known me for a long, long time. Did you ever watch the show? I think it's called Into the Badlands.
Yeah,
From
a little
AMC.
bit. A little bit. Like I think uh, a good chunk of the first season.
Yeah.
Where I found out that they were like the guy and the girl character were basically the son and daughter, prince and princess of the clans. the opposite clans.
Right.
After that, it kind of started to become silly.
Well, I just well, anyway, there were just some aspects that I really liked.
Yeah.
And this story kind of is, like you had the different clan areas. Those are kind of like city states. I don't know. It was something that I was like, yeah. So some of it they know technology, but they're also doing a lot of stuff by, horse-drawn carriage and stuff like that. So, but they find old technology at times, just different things. So it's kind of an aesthetic thing. That's all. It's kind of and I'll say kind of an inspiration piece, sort of. He flexed.
Well, it just feels like a little undernourished on one side.
I just thought because he's kind of had that whole flex pose, right? And then made him bigger. So
Well, I told you I was going to make him bigger.
I know. I just kind of made me laugh when it was that pose, and then just he
Yeah,
puffed himself up.
This is not a pose.
Okay.
This is just trying to get the dimensions right. We already discussed that this is not a pose.
Well, it's not.
He's not supposed to be doing anything. It's just trying to get the size and width and right, and all this right. That's all.
And the design aspects.
Well, yeah, but I have to get the
Right.
proportions right before I can worry about how I'm gonna clothe the proportions better. That's why I keep widening out the legs and.
Right, because if it was a pose, one shoulder would be back.
If it was a pose, he'd be doing something. Besides just standing there looking at you. You got to keep in mind, too, I'm a little under the weather.
muscle is an interesting phrase, under the weather. Like, when are you on the weather? Or above the weather?
Well, I've been above the weather plenty of times. It's snowy and nasty and everything else here. And I've been out inside that kind of weather with no problem plenty of times. But I didn't create the turn of phrase. Yeah, so I don't want his legs looking like a bodybuilder. I've noticed that a lot. Yeah, when you see people that do really, really good musculature, they never take into account, like even Spider-Man, like if he's drawn thin, you don't see the musculature. You just see really thinness. But you either see musculature like they're standing flexed, which is kind of what he's doing. or you don't see it at all. So that's kind of one of the places I'm at with this is I don't know how much I want to focus on the muscle tone, which is really odd because that's the reason that I like drawing figures, right? So I like drawing the muscle tone, but this isn't about drawing the muscle tone, it's about drawing a story. So I am literally doing a lot of research for this. I just bought 2 different comic books. So that I could look up some reference that looks more natural. And I think that's something that we've gotten away with comic books, with most comic books today. I'm guilty of it because I like to draw muscle tone. In that we've gotten away from drawing really natural bodies and the muscles that you would only see when they're being used.
Right.
To trying to, represent every single muscle all the time. This is all just things I've been thinking about. Because when we started this and kind of got the idea where we were going to go with it, whether it be near future or far future or whatever, I started thinking about what's best for telling a story in that time period versus just how much muscle I want to draw or whatever. And I've come to the conclusion that some of it may even be best represented without seeing the muscle tone. Like if he was wearing a shirt, there'd be wrinkles across here. You might see the basic shape of where his abs are, but you're not going to see the real detailed abs. Likewise, if he's wearing a hooded poncho or whatever, that's going to cover up a lot of this stuff.
See, one of the reasons why I like the idea of a hooded poncho is it's the unbreakable trick. You can have basically a guy in a cape without being a guy in a cape.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have told me that.
Uh-oh.
I'm not a fan of Unbreakable.
Well, that's fine, but you don't have to be a fan. That's what they did at the end in the newspaper article. They show that whatever the guy's name is, John Dunn, I think, or something like that. And he's got a security guard poncho on. And it's like, oh, I get it. Okay, it's basically a cape without being a cape. I mean, it's just like there's a lot of smart stuff in that movie. Whether you don't like the plot or whatever, there's still some good thought that went into it. For some people, it's too slow.
I'm gonna assume that you picked up more of that than I did because I wasn't really impressed, and I wouldn't have put those together.
Okay.
You told me I just really like ponchos.
Well, I do.
So
that's just
when you said that, that's where I went with it. So I didn't go to Unbreakable because I think I watched the movie once and that was enough for me.
Okay. Hey, just because I can recognize that I've seen this is, and I recognize it as, all right, this is what they're doing, and then we've come to a situation where that exact tool could be the one that would be useful. So, I mean, ponchos, if it's a rainy outdoor area, you've got cover. So that's just if it's dry and too sunny, you got cover. I mean, it's a practical piece of attire, which is kind of the first important part of the character design. And then I thought there are other aspects artistically that would be fun to play with.
I don't know.
Or even like,
I don't know yet. I haven't gotten there yet, so
that's fine. I'm just throwing out some.
As is, I'm kind of enjoying the way that this looks like a coif.
Yeah. And if we want to go that, I honestly don't care.
No, I'm just thinking. Like, I mean, it's not a coif, but if this was a mantle, like you would see on a duster, you could still have that cape.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this design with the face the malleable face, we'll put it that way. The featureless face, whatever. That really plays into one of the things that we were talking about before with some of his bionic aspects. Because I would, I think it might be interesting if the character might not remember what his original face looked like.
Well, yeah, and we were talking about he is not how he originally was anyway.
Right.
And so he has a degree of amnesia built in.
Which that would make that an even more interesting uh, character arc type thing.
Story element?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily, it's a motivation that you don't ever have to necessarily satisfy. I mean,
It's still a story element. It
okay.
might be the element of mystery or whatever, but that's like that whole original Wolverine thing, right?
Right.
I would say it's just a story element. I think that's what we do with the story element, or what you do with that story element. Just makes you able to play. Clunk.
Oh, this makes me laugh.
Well, I'm glad you and my children can laugh at my misery.
Ah,
Somebody has to.
it's the best. I just
Somebody
appreciate
has
you offering
to.
it up for us. Thank you.
Hmm.
Oh.
Why waste so long?
Wait, so. Okay.
What?
Oops. Well, see, yeah, I just was trying to figure out what. Oh, just didn't know what you were doing.
I'm designing.
You're playing.
That's the verb of designing. You're just watching it take place.
Right. No, it was just. I didn't realize you were going to make like you were going to erase part of it. That's all. So then
Well, I didn't either until I did it. I'm just seeing what I like.
Okay.
So, if I had that long, one of the problem I have with Cape's characters are, in reality, be fucking tripping over that cape. Batman, when he jumps, has to hold this cape out with both hands to the side, right? You see it all the fucking time. Well, what the fuck good does that do? Unless you're
Keeps you
jump
wide
kicking
open.
someone. Right. So why would you do that? So
Guess
like
it looks cool.
what I'm thinking, yeah,
Like
because it looks cool.
Like
It
a
looks
superhero
cool.
ending.
I looked really good when I was getting killed.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I'm trying to think logistically as I'm designing. So, I thought, well, instead of like, I thought instead of just doing uh, poncho that I would do maybe a long coat. And then I thought it just looks like a cape, and I don't want it to look just like a cape. See, I'm thinking this is a mantle, so this would actually slide over, and if it comes over, it would be shorter. See?
Okay. Oh, God.
Until you closed it around. When you closed it around, it hang, level.
Yeah, no, I was just being dumb because I've got the Twitch stream up on the big screen, and then I have the StreamYard below. And so, because I can see the Twitch, it's a bigger screen. But, which is dumb. Maybe I should switch my screens around. No, because I'm going to have the same problem no matter what. So, anyway. So Twitch lags a little bit behind the StreamYard. All right, fine, whatever.
Right.
So when you were saying,
it doesn't matter if you were watching. YouTube, it's still lag. Anything other than StreamYard, yeah.
I can hear you talk, and normally it's not. It doesn't really matter. But then when you were saying, see. And because you had made the change, but you hadn't made the change yet on my big screen, so I did not see. It was just, just technical issues. Mainly that I'm dumb or easily distracted by the big screen. So, yeah. So, well, hold on. Before I say something stupid, let's make sure I have a clue. Yeah, I was right. Okay, good. I'm not crazy. So, how do I put this? Oh no, never mind. I was being dumb. That's how I put it. I was dumb.
So, any other practical things you think that he needs? Or that needs to be visual?
Well, I'm assuming he's armed. Maybe they had bracelets.
No, the bracelets aren't like weapons or whatever. I mean, maybe they could be. We haven't decided on that, but
Well, then he's gonna need.
you don't need to visualize it right now, do you? You don't
No.
need to see a gun strapped to his leg, right? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm just saying.
Because what I'm thinking is that he has got a lot of real estate that you can't see. Like his whole backside underneath the cape. Or whatever you want to call it. Cape, poncho. And there could be pieces of stuff. But I'm thinking, for the most part, I mean, we might give him. You wouldn't want him walking around with a gun for the same reason you won't want him walking around with armor on, like visual body armor. So you might have a gun, might have a rifle or something that would be acceptable for travel. Guess we'll have to talk about that a little bit more to figure out
Well, that makes sense. I
What-
mean, I can still give him a pistol, if nothing else. I mean,
well, so what I'm thinking is like we talked about a MacGyver aspect, which I'm assuming you meant like what I was thinking is that he's adaptable. He has the ability to use certain tools to create other things, traps and weapons and whatever.
okay.
A spy usually has a small caliber weapon or a small like personal carry weapon.
Right.
So the idea with those types of weapons are that they don't print on you. They don't show very well on you. They're easily concealed, easily hidden. So they would be concealed. So things I think you would need would be a knife, maybe a handgun, maybe a rifle that's more obvious, like a traveler's rifle, if we decide that's common there. And then other things would be like the things that you'd find in a survival knife, which he has compartments for, you know.
Right.
And then there's the other aspect of him, which I'm going to try to keep as a surprise for now. Until we decide to show it or how to cement what we're doing with it.
Yeah.
I put it in the private chat. So.
Oh. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. So I want to keep.
Yeah, okay.
There are things that I think would be applicable there too, that would be concealed.
All right.
So for now, and like I'm I'm really debating on loosening this up some so that you're seeing the form, but not really muscles.
Well, so in A Fistful of Dollars, you know, Clint Eastwood's got the
Serape.
serape, and sometimes it's like thrown over his shoulder, right? So you see more of what's like, you know, if he's going to fight, throws it back over his shoulder. I don't know if that kind of imagery would help with you're still getting to see some of it, but you don't see all. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Well,
Just a thought.
Clint Eastwood was using Colt Navies, which are really long guns.
Right.
And they're black powder cap and ball guns. So that's a whole different thing. Hey, Jen. So, yeah. Like,
I was just suggesting, I mean, as a character design aspect, not
I don't know.
necessarily.
I think it would be a very big nod to Clint Eastwood, but it also would be like making him a cowboy, which we're not doing, right? The whole point is that he's easily disguisable and
Well, I mean,
not confronting people. So, like, you could have him throw the short cloak offside so that he could draw a gun, but I think I don't think that has anything to do with whether or not we see the muscle tone as we go. So I'm thinking logistically, storytelling wise, do we even need it? Are we going to show it that way, or maybe it can wait until it's necessary?
right, because I mean, right now he's looking very superhero-ish,
Right.
and I didn't think you wanted to go that route either.
No, and like I said, this was a framework, and that's why I said we built the muscles up, and then I started kind of erasing some of the muscle tone out. It's just a matter of what the uniform is actually going to be, and that's something that we didn't really talk about. Because I just wanted to lay out the body, and I wanted to get the head and the main parts right. So,
well, for me, I think the head is great, and there are two parts of it that I really like. So, I guess the way you kind of designed it, the way it kind of goes into the chest, but it's the hooded part with the rest of the chest is very much connected versus the mask part, which is not. I mean, it's a separate entity, really.
right?
And I find that, like, that neck area and stuff, I love that. I think that is fantastic. Okay. Anyway, so I don't know, I like the head part a lot. I think that's that whole concept. When it comes to the rest of the clothes, I just keep thinking, I don't know how uniform it needs to be.
For me, this is the question that where I'm at, the dilemma that I'm at. do I want it aesthetically to look more like Ghost in the Shell,
Yeah.
or like Star Wars, or Blade Runner, or you see, it's the difference between skin tight uniforms or uniforms that look like uniforms. And they don't even need to look like uniforms so much as like clothes. The whole Mission Impossible thing, like when he's running about trying to save that person in the beginning of 3, the one who has the brain bomb. He's just running around in black fatigues.
Okay.
So it's nothing like during that scene, it's nothing too uniform-ish, but you know, also I don't know. It just depends on what the ultimate outcome is, and I think I actually want to go somewhere in the middle where it's like it's ironic that you showed me the what you thought this was looking like earlier, the Hellfire Club cards, because the artist that drew them for the comic, as opposed to the toy that you were showing, I'm pretty sure it was John Byrne, and he did a lot of, when it was dark clothes, just doing the outer shape of the muscle, and the rest of it would be just black, you know, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a whole lot of black and folds and ripples and all this other stuff. So it's just a matter of where I want to go with it. Like if you were wearing a wetsuit, it would be skin tight. You see the shape. You might see a wrinkle across it here and there. But for the most part, you wouldn't actually have the definition of the muscles either. You would just have the outer shape. It's kind of like the silhouette, unless you saw like light off a plane. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you wouldn't see all these little tiny muscle details. You would just see the basic outer shape. And I'm really starting to like that idea. And as I'm erasing this stuff, and so that it's simpler, I'm kind of liking that too, where I can see enough to know where it is on his body,
You know,
but it doesn't have to be
skin tight.
right. I like the idea of you just seeing planes as the light shifts over the planes. I might have to do a little bit of research to see what I can see for reference material for it, like maybe divers in the evening time or something like that, Navy SEALs, that kind of thing, where you're almost getting into G.I. Joe territory, where you're talking about Snake Eyes and the Baroness and all them, where they have really tight uniforms, but they don't have, like, you don't see all the little details of their muscle tones.
Right. Yep.
Hey, Dinocation. Thank you for that. I'm not sure how awesome it's looking, but I think we're starting to nail the character down. Which, I guess that in itself is pretty awesome, right?
I think it's a definite step in the right direction.
So it's like,
I think we're also starting to get the idea. I mean, our visions are becoming more aligned. So that's always useful.
Well, definitely, because we're not really talking around the subject, and if we are talking around any part of the subject, we're kind of clarifying it to each other. Like if we're not informing the viewership. Yeah, see, I like that where it's we can get enough to get the shape, so we get the form, but we don't want to get every little. What was it? Somebody said we don't know enough to know whether or not or what religion he is.
Yeah, we don't need to get that detail.
So, basic muscle shapes. It's odd. I don't think I've ever drawn something and then got detailed, and then after I've gotten all detailed, loosen up the drawing. But that's pretty much what I'm doing, is to get the overall idea. Another thing I was thinking of is if instead of doing the deep muscle tone, do some texture, like the modern version of what they're doing with Thor's armor. You know what I mean?
The kind of scaly look?
Well, they're not doing scales like this. They're doing basically a grid.
On the last... Go ahead.
But they're picking a side to light it from.
Yeah.
And as the form rounds, the shadows get heavier. And where it's closer to the light, they're a little bit less. So basically doing that here where it disappears into shadow or whatever, but when it comes out of it, instead of showing the muscle, showing just the form, the rounded form.
Can you do me a favor? And the picture that you drew last time, can you bring that out for a second?
This one.
And okay, this is going to be kind of a pain in the butt, but yeah. So, and you can't see me do this, but the second character's hand.
Yeah.
To me, the texture on that was just kind of neat looking, considering.
Yeah, because it looks like it's a robot hand.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I
like a little bit like Colossus.
Well, like the arms and legs definitely do, but that for some reason looked less.
That's how Colossus's hands are, which is kind of where I drew the inspiration from. I guess it depends on the artist, but I'm thinking like Rick Leonardi and Jim Lee.
I just think it looks more textured than what. But whatever.
Yeah. It does look more textured. I haven't even. This is too small to even bother right now. Like I said, I'm just kind of giving the overall. So you're saying that you'd like that mechanical look to the gloves?
Yeah, I do definitely like the. Yeah,
I like it too, which is why I put it in there.
yeah. Definitely depends on the artist.
Huh?
I said it definitely depends on the artist. I was looking up it. I just looked up Colossus because I knew that was kind of the armbands were from that, but for some reason, in some artists definitely go a longer distance on the hands. Other ones just you can see it's just they don't put a lot into it. Occasion, and you can just kind of tell. And so that is more of the really articulated like joint
Yeah.
structure, and
Yeah.
it's a cooler look. Okay, I just got to ask the question because I'm curious if my brain is just, and I think that's the case. But so on the mask, there isn't any indication of an actual mouth, right?
Right.
Like no hinge whatsoever.
Nope. Not at all.
And yet, I
Like a
swear
mask.
to God, my eyes keep trying to fill one in. I'm like, there's nothing there. Oh, there's just a
Well,
little hint. No,
there was like your dividing lines for your um uh Loomis
yeah, I
one.
know the method for drawing the face, and
Yeah, there was the lines for the Loomis head, but the only solid lines, like I even erased all the other around it, so it was. I just want the indication of a nose, the indication of cheeks, the indication of a hairline, which is why it started looking like that white owl. So I like the idea of I like the idea of him being faceless.
yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah, I like the idea that he doesn't have a face until he needs one.
That's kind of cool.
Oh. Oh.
I have a feeling okay. But I have a feeling about I may have to put this into the private chat, but
Yeah, probably. If it's got to do with what I put in the private chat.
yeah, there are several. Yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of those. But
Title?
yeah. Character and
Those-
title.
No, title is what I'm concerned with.
Yeah. Like since there are, I can go ahead and talk about it, right? Because you're not going to want to use.
I'd rather hold off and because we might bounce that around some.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, they got them in DC Comics. Yeah, including his character in Batman. And then, yeah, there's that name. So yeah, yeah. Anyway, let's see. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna put it in private chat because I can't figure out how to say it clearly. So
That's why I said you just might have to wait and say it after.
there, you have a nice long private comment. And through the magic of delay, I can watch you drawing the stuff I missed while I was typing. Ugh. Anyway, answered your question, but saying more would ruin the stream. Ugh. So you read Isom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't, but I have not read it, and I don't need a review or anything. I'm not asking for that. I just know that
there's already an excellent review. I don't need to do it.
Right. Well, I don't want to go into that either. I just, the reason I asked was, I know Eric July had said he was going to try to keep his politics out of the fiction. So
Okay. Said
that was
try.
well, yeah.
But you know he's full of shit.
Well, that's why I wondered.
He's selling his fiction on his politics.
Well,
so that's a recent development that he's claiming. As long as the Sasko sisters don't fill his books with their politics, that's a recent thing, because he's been nothing but bitching about what mainstream comics have for politics and how his politics are against those politics. So that's what his whole salesmanship was predicated on.
Well, I got that, which is why I wondered how successful, if you gave that comic book to someone who didn't know about Eric July, would they know Eric July's politics? See what I'm saying? Like, you know, if you wouldn't know, then all right, I guess he kind of kept his word.
See, now the trap there is,
okay,
to answer that question truthfully.
Yeah.
So that it's not misleading.
Yeah.
I would have to give you a partial review.
Oh, well then that's okay. You know, I just
so
the reason why I asked ultimately is because, I mean, I'm assuming to some degree we're not seeking to do a big political morality play, right? That's not our deal. We just want to, you know, tell a story we want to tell and do art we want to do, and yeah, we're not really taking a political slant on this.
No.
Directly, right?
So I mean, there is no way to write about a milieu where you're not writing politics into the milieu. That said, we are not overtly writing like libertarian, liberal, Republican, or conservative, or whatever. We're not overtly trying to throw a message in it, which is different. And why I say that's different is because you can't write Rome without writing politics. Rome's all about politics. I mean, you can't write ancient Greece without writing politics. That's half the tales of ancient Greece. It's all about politics. So it would be difficult to say that, we're not going to put any politic in, because we're talking about having multiple city-states with multiple different approaches, right?
Right. So
those are multiple different political approaches is what we're talking about.
But we're not necessarily
we're not pushing modern, we're not pushing current politics.
There we go.
I guess that's the best way to put it. We're not trying to show this is the libertarian way or something like that. That's just ridiculous. We're trying to put out a comic book. That's a fun comic book. That's an engrossing story.
Right.
That would make you want to see it as a movie, or something like that, to that effect. No, it's, if you're asking that if we're going to put out something political, no, we're not putting out a political book. At least that's not the intent. Like, there's you can't write a story without some type of politics being involved. Just because the fact that if you have a city, there's still city politics. If you have a state, there's state politics. If you have a PTA meeting, there's politics.
That's true.
So I mean, you're really not going to be able to escape one person's way that they think things should be run, which is what we're talking about when we're talking about politics, right? But we're not going to go, hey, this is about showing how this is right and this is wrong. So there's not going to be a message that this is anti-communist, or there's not going to be a message that this is anti-Biden or anti-Trump or anti-anything like that. It's just we're going to show politics as there is such a thing as politics, and there is such a thing as multiple political views. So we're not existing in a vacuum. So the stories will have weight, but they won't have a message. Now, you and I have talked about this for a long time as writers, that if you're going to write something that has a political point of view, you always try to write the opposite political view as well, and represent that equally as well. Because we don't think anyone on either side of the political spectrum is an idiot because they have any political opinion. We don't want to make anyone seem wrong for having an opinion, whether it's in agreement with our opinion or not, right? Like when you illustrate someone that has a strong political opinion, whether you're writing a character in prose or whether you're writing a character in a comic book, you don't want to show that there's only one way, or only one side, or only one right way, or only one right side. You want to make it available for everybody to have a little bit of right and a little bit of wrong, right?
Okay.
Would you agree?
Depends on what type of thing I'm writing.
Well, we're talking about writing fiction, and we're talking about
Oh, I know, but
we're not writing politics. We're not writing some kind of political treatise or
right. No, I just if there are certain stories or certain audiences. I don't know. I mean,
I guess am I misunderstanding what you're asking?
no, I'm just simply saying that I can see that there are times when having a clear-cut bad guy and a clear-cut good guy is appropriate and good for the story.
Oh, I agree.
I don't necessarily think that we're going to be playing around with that clear-cut of a thing in this.
Well, so here's what I didn't say anything about having a clear-cut villain or not. What I said was the politics aren't the villain.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying is that a well-told story doesn't make a political opinion the villain. It makes a villain because of who they are, not because of what political leanings they have. So we don't want to alienate anyone for their political leanings. And because that we're setting it in a untrue milieu, time period, whatever, we have the availability of really not even worrying about it because we don't have to touch on anything. We don't have to touch on any subject matter that would show one in a good light and one in a bad light. We're not. I guess what I'm thinking is you're not talking about like the overall plot, right? That we had discussed. You're not talking about that being anti or
yeah, that's completely not. I can't see a political agenda in any of that.
Okay,
However,
but I could see people saying there was, because certain people will say, "Oh, that sounds like a certain kind of politic, right?" That you would even focus on what's being focused on. So, like, if there's 3 countries at war and one of them are producing better tanks or better guns, some people might say, well, that automatically makes them capitalist or Republican or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
And other people might say that would be just the opposite. That would be, oh, the Democrats like to start wars or whatever. We're not focusing on it that way. We're focusing on a story. It's about what's going on in the story, not about what their politics are. I seem to have misplaced my pencil lead. I can't imagine. I misplaced it too far. Ah. Like I said, I can't imagine misplacing it too far. This is 3H, for anyone that's curious, which is a hard pencil lead. Let's see if yes I do. Alright, so like, I guess I don't know why you were asking about politics. Like, Is that what you were thinking? That we're avoiding politics of the subject or in the plot?
Well, I thought we were going to avoid politics in the plot.
Oh,
because
so
I
you
didn't-
were. I'm asking if you were trying to clarify it.
I guess I was clarifying.
Okay. Yeah, I had no intent on. I had no political intent.
Yeah.
That's the long and the short of that answer.
Yeah, I think most of this has come down to, oh, that'll sound cool. Oh, that'll be cool. Oh,
Yeah. Well, I think most of this has come down to, you know what I really like?
Yeah.
You know what I really like to watch? You know what I really would like in a story?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, P.S. What I really wouldn't like in a story? Politics.
Yeah.
I prefer to not do that if I can avoid it. And like I said, you can't write a story without the story's politics, but you can write a story that's not meant to be politically aimed, and that's what we're doing. We're not politically aiming. Well, I did not succeed in doing a super short stream. Although I haven't felt like I was going to puke, so
That's good.
I guess that's a positive out of that.
You can't blame me on this. I did not get you sick.
Oh, no. Eli puked his guts out this morning.
Lovely.
He sat in my chair, the chair I'm sitting in now,
Yeah.
and puked on the floor. I'm like, no, puke in the trash can. But yeah, he wasn't feeling good at all.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really hard when you have a special needs kid that's sick because, well, our special needs kid being sick, because when you ask him, "Are you okay?" he goes, "Yes." And then after he pukes, he's like, "Eli, good." Like, no, you're not good, dude. You just puked your guts out. You're not good. Sorry.
Yeah. That's like, God. So.
And it's hard because his first answer usually is no. So.
Well, so Thursday, my son comes into my classroom on Thursday, and he looks like he's been hit by a bus. And he's like, I don't feel good. I'm like, well, you don't look good either. So I told him to go down to the nurse. And she looked at him and was like, yeah, you need to go home. And after lunch, I have about 30 minutes of class, and then I have a prep period. And so I kind of figured, I was like, fifth period is my prep period. If the nurse says you should go home, I'll take you home. But, I figured by the time he got down there, she looked him over, he might have to wait 10 minutes, Well, turns out my wife picked him up, and then he came home. He got about, I guess, like 3 steps inside the door, turned around and ran back outside and just worked his guts up. And so we're like, all right, yeah, obviously you're sick. But then Thursday night, he started getting, because this is what he does. He spirals sometimes. But he's like, I wasn't that sick. I couldn't. Well, it's just my younger son. He'll fixate, and
Is he also special needs, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's Tourette's. It's
something. There's
yeah
something
but
more there. than just being a regular
But he
kid
started
running around.
Thursday was sectionals, and so he missed sectionals, and he's all, he's beating himself up and all this stuff. And it's like, kid, like, just, you were obviously sick. Like, you tried to come home and then turned around and ran outside and, just orked everywhere. And I don't think you have to worry about, like, you're sick, man. Like, but it took convincing. And that's the kind of thing where I'm just like, no, like, just relax. Like, you're sick. Sometimes they have a hard time admitting they're sick.
Yeah, Eli doesn't like to admit it, but Eli's first answer to everything is no. So like, he really will be sick, and we're like, do you feel like you're gonna puke? And he's like, no. Literally right after he says no, he's puking his guts out.
And that would be super frustrating because it's like, why did you lie? But it's not. And
it doesn't feel like that at all. I mean, it's more like you pity the kid. Like, how do you? You didn't know that was coming, bud? Oh boy. I've had him puke while saying no.
See, that'd be I don't mind if a kid's sick, he's sick. That would be the part I would have a hard time dealing with, is being told that, yeah, are you sick? No. It's just like,
yeah. See, it's not like him lying. It's he either A, doesn't think he's really sick, or he B, doesn't want to stay home. He wants to go to school. He wants to be with his buddies and away from mom and dad. Like, how do you say no when you know what he wants?
right.
And then you see him puking his guts out, and you're like, oh, damn, sorry, bud, but there ain't no way we're letting you puke all over everybody at school.
Thaddeus will push himself. Like last year, I'm glad we finally kind of took control of it, but he was he was dangerously low on vitamin D, and he had pushed himself to exhaustion. Like, he had to be pulled from the pool, and that's why.
That's kind of what I was indicating with Eli. Like, if Eli tells you he doesn't want to go to Walmart, or he doesn't want to go to basketball practice or whatever, you know there's something wrong with the kid, because he lives to get the fuck out. So that was Thaddeus with his meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really rough, and especially when you love a kid. The hard thing about these kinds of situations is that they can't tell you that they're going to be sick,
right?
And you can't do anything for them because you don't know.
Right?
Like, and sometimes they say no, and it's no. And sometimes they say no and puke as they're saying no. So it's like it's two different extremes, right?
Right.
And they don't want to be sick. You don't want them to be sick. But you feel helpless because you can't do anything to help them.
Yeah, that also all of that also raises my anxiety. So if I can't if I'm powerless to help, and then, oh my goodness, like, I'm telling you, this what you described from Eli would be incredibly difficult for me to handle.
Well, it's difficult for us to handle, but it's more of a pitying thing. It's more of a like, I just can't stand seeing him where I can't help him. I can't do anything for him. I'm like, it's not a matter of being mad at him for that kind of stuff, because it's not easy. All special needs kids, and I think you'll find this is a truism. Uh, they they can be like the most beautiful child in the world or the most difficult, and they can change in a heartbeat from one to the other. But when he's sick, it's not like that at all. There's nothing but feeling sorry for the kid and not wanting him to feel as miserable as you know he's feeling, even though he's trying not to admit it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the case this morning, and more than likely I'm sick due to hanging out with him, because also it's very difficult for me when he comes up to me and says he wants a kiss to not give him a kiss. And then I realize he's been puking his guts out. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have held off on that one. What do you do, right? So, even though he's older than you would think, he's really still pretty young. And mentality and life experience and the ability to understand everything that you mean.
Yeah.
So that's another kind of difficult thing. So really hard when he can't understand what you're trying to tell him. But it's that very difficult or most beautiful thing and most beautiful person in the world thing. There's really there's really no in between for us, I guess. He's either tops or making you angry. And when he's pitiful, he's still tops. He's just pitiful. So it's been an interesting day, but I'm pretty sure I got sick from him. He might even have gotten sick from me, because I wasn't feeling right yesterday.
You sickened him.
Yeah, I have that effect on people. Normally not him, but... Today's what, Thursday?
Today's Saturday.
Saturday. So next Saturday you're talking about. Well, that's why I was confused for a second there. I was like, what do you mean Saturday? This is Saturday. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe it's Tuesday. When you stream every other day. So, did you read John Byrne's X-Men?
I don't know if I necessarily would have known if it was John Byrne's X-Men. Because that's not why I was...
Yeah, he was super big deal.
Well, yeah, but...
So, there's a point to why I asked you. Some of the X-Men that actually John Byrne drew, he wrote, but they credited Chris Claremont with.
Oh.
And they fired John Byrne off of it in the middle of a story arc. So, John Byrne finished the story arc for, get this, 30 issues.
Huh.
And he penciled them. And then he put them up on his website for free as fan art.
Yeah.
So you can literally click and scroll down and read all 30 issues. I'm finding that's pretty common nowadays, is that the bigger companies screwed enough people over that they either took their properties and made them free
Yeah.
or finished the stuff that they were doing as fan art so they can't get sued and released it as fan art for free. As long as they're not charging, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, like I liked John Byrne's X-Men. That's where I got into it. Dale Keown got into drawing comics because of John Byrne. A lot of artists did. And so yeah, I have that site saved where you can go and check it out. Like he's got it listed as the 30 issues or something, and they're like blog posts or not blog posts, message board posts. But you click on the links and then you just scroll down those posts and you're reading the story. I read 2 of the issues, and it's like Storm was in the Savage Land, and like when I saw it, I was like, wow, I don't even remember some of the story arc. I remember the characters, but I was like, But it picks up right from where he got fired. And you'll definitely recognize his drawings because he's one of the faces of X-Men. Like before Jim Lee and like Rick Leonardi, Dan Green, Jim Lee, Scott Williams. There were a lot of people in between there that I'm missing, but I'm thinking of like Mark Silvestri and so let me know if you're interested, and I'll
So, like, you said it's
send
on his
you a
webpage,
link.
right?
What's that?
I'm pretty sure I could probably Google it, can't I?
Well, you could, but it took me a bit to find them where they are
Oh, well, then I guess send me the link.
because they're on his forums, but he's got quite a few. He's got a lot of fans over a lot of years, and there's a lot of stuff in his forums. And it took me a little bit searching to find them. So, like, I was just gonna save you it. If you want to look it up yourself, you can. Fine.
Oh, no. If it's hard, then
Well,
you save you time.
hard for me may not be hard. It just may be hard for me. But yeah, I just thought you might enjoy them if you were into X-Men at that time.
I would enjoy them.
And I'm thinking maybe he had some of the Hellfire run too, or maybe that was like just right after him or something. I'm thinking of it because basically what I'm doing to give this dimension is something right out of his playbook. And I've seen his pencil, so he drew them out all the way. He didn't just draw them out part of the way and then ink them.
You've seen Kroll before, right?
Well, yeah.
So, I heard rumors that they're remaking it.
I've heard, but I heard that they're only rumors.
Okay.
But
and
that,
B,
never know.
off the top of your head, do you remember what the weapon was called?
The glaive,
That's what I thought.
because that's a real weapon. A glaive. It's usually a double-bladed knife.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember playing that board game, Aaron. Aaron said that they used to have the board game for it.
I do not remember a board game for it.
Well,
I had
there
the
was.
book. I had the book. I read it to Eli. He loved that. I didn't like the book as much as I liked the movie. Probably because it could have expanded on it and didn't.
Oh, yeah?
It was written by Alan Dean Foster. So you'd think, he would have expanded on it a little bit. But
He just wanted the money.
the only expansion is just a tiny bit before the wedding ceremony. I would have loved to have written that book. I would have loved to have the rights to fuck around with those characters and explore those characters. One of my favorite characters from that movie is Madam of the Web,
Yeah, she was cool.
the Widow of the Web. Also liked the Cyclops.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson, that was his first role. Robbie Coltrane was in that movie. Hagrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy that played Colwyn. He's on Star Trek, Next Generation. Doesn't look anything like him. Doesn't sound anything like him. You'd never know, So, you like that movie, right?
Yeah.
Tell me, what was the Beast's motivation?
Didn't he just want the girl?
Well, he took the girl, but that was not his motivation. It looked like that was his motivation.
Okay. I don't recall his motivation then.
His motivation, yeah, they didn't really explain it in the movie. Although when I tell you, you'll probably understand it. His motivation was the magic. The wedding magic.
Oh.
The wedding magic was the only thing that could defeat him.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did too. I was like, what? And then I was like, okay. Can see that. They should have explicitly stated it somewhere though. Because most of the people that watched it and loved it were kids.
Yeah.
Most of the adults were like, yeah, that's kind of cheesy.
You might want to refocus your camera. Like, it's just on Twitch, at least on mine, it's yours looks blurry.
Did it refocus?
No. There you go.
I was gonna say I just watched it refocus.
Oh, I was on delay again. I was looking at the Twitch versus looking at the StreamYard. So when you asked me, that's the same thing. I haven't realized it. You know, you were speaking from the future.
Yeah, that's what I tell my old lady when we're walking around the store and she's walking 10 steps ahead of me and talking and I can just barely hear the sound of her voice.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking to the future. I'm not there yet. By the time I get there, you won't be there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't tell that motivation. If you watch the movie and you didn't, read the book or whatever, then that's the thing that you missed out on. Really, is that you thought that it was that he wanted her because he kept her trapped, but
Right.
He just didn't want to allow Cullen to take the fire. Which I don't understand why he just didn't kill her if that was the case, but
It just sounds more and more like porn every time you describe it. It's marriage magic. Uh-huh.
hey, I didn't make that shit up.
He was scared he was scared of him taking the fire. But yeah, this is just terrible.
What did he do once he took the fire?
It was after he shot his wad with the glaive. But the glaive didn't necessarily need to be there, if I remember correctly.
No, the glaive stuck in the beast.
Yeah, but it didn't do anything until
because the beast, he tried to take it back out, and then the beast drew it back in, sucked it in. That's the only thing I really never liked about that movie.
Okay.
The Beast. I didn't like the Beast at all.
Yeah, the villain seemed very superficial.
That's not even what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm a superficial kind of guy, I guess.
All right.
I didn't like the way he looked. I didn't like the way he couldn't communicate. They did all that work on special effects on him, and they made him blurry every time they showed him. The only thing that you saw clearly was his bloodshot ass eyes.
Did you say something? Okay.
It's like I got into... Somebody was talking about another vampire movie that came out at the same time as Lost Boys. And apparently that one was a grittier movie, and I had never seen it. It had Lance Hendrickson in it. It's called Near Dark. I was like, I never saw that, but Lost Boys full of plot holes.
Oh yeah.
And some girl tried to defend it, and it's obviously because, she thought it was a sexy movie like all the other people did.
Well, sometimes
that's what sold the movie. That's the reason that people that claim they love that movie, they claim they love that movie because it was a sexy vampire movie. Like,
wait, which movie are you talking about? The Lost Boys?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not why I liked it, but okay.
That's. I'm saying the people that I've heard that claim they like it. That's why they like it so much.
Well, that's not why I liked
it.
It
made vampires sexy.
No. Nope. 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 It was cool because it was like, again, you got to think about when it was released. But I was a kid, and this kid's dealing with it, and you know, I mean, it just, you know, you think that you're going to be. I mean, it's teen fare. I would never say it's like a super well thought out movie, but for the right age group,
that's good because it was so full of plot holes. It's not even funny.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just, you know, I wasn't going for a real riveting.
I'm sure. How old were you?
I was young. That's all I know.
Yeah.
I'd have to look and see what.
Are you sure it wasn't like it was the thrill of electric sex?
It was not. So I was
Jamie
9 or 10.
And...
It was 9 or 10, depending on what month it came out in, and probably 9. And I don't know. It was just cool vampire stuff. It was just. Thought it was more of a, I don't know. It was a vampire. I mean, I guess in a way, I suppose, maybe, I don't know. I wasn't thinking that they were sexy vampires. I was thinking they were cool vampires.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say sexy, though. But again, I was also 9 or 10.
Yeah, well, I wasn't, and that was the whole thing. But that was what everybody was saying about it. That's what everybody was. I mean, like, when I say everybody, I'm talking about that's how they touted it. The critics were, this is sexy movie, and they made vampires sexy and all this other shit. And that was the intent of the filmmaker too, because
but that's the protagonists are kids.
That's three of the protagonists are kids. Michael's the actual protagonist.
Okay, but I don't think he's really the one you follow.
But he's the protagonist. He's the one that's got the most to lose. And he is the protagonist. And that's not by me anyway. I'm just stating the facts.
Yeah, but you follow his brother.
You followed his brother. He was a side comic relief thing when I watched it. Everybody, it was all about Michael and his romancing with Jamie Gerst and David convincing him to join, and the brother was more incidental than anything else. If you actually watch it and you see who was on screen most, you're gonna find Jason Patrick was on more screen most probably, or Kiefer Sutherland, but I think Jason Patrick. But either way, that was that whole time period. It was like Less Than Zero, and those were Jamie Gertz movies. But either way, there was a bunch of plot holes in it, and I had mentioned it, and I see these girls come to the defense, and it was like, yeah, right. Like, so who is the guy that owns the house?
The old man.
Who invited the vampire in?
The mom?
No.
That wasn't the old man?
Nope. No, he didn't invite he didn't invite him in. At the end, he shows up and kills him. I didn't invite you in. It
Yeah.
was Jason Patrick's character. I didn't invite you back this time, Max, but Max didn't have any, like, none of the stuff worked against Max. The
Garlic.
Yeah, the garlic and the mirror and all that shit, because supposedly he was invited in by the owner, but the old man never invited him in. And it doesn't matter whether he thinks that that Michael is the man of the house, because he says that I'm not coming in until the man of the house invites me in. But he didn't even take the old guy into account. So he would have been burnt with garlic and all that other shit way earlier. There was a lot of flaws, and the movie was changed a whole lot in the production too. It got less and less serious as it went along too. I don't remember everything that was changed, but somebody had mentioned that Near Dark was a better vampire movie for the time, and I was like, I haven't seen it, but there's a lot of flaws in Lost Boys. It's like everybody that I know, they're like, oh, Lost Boys, Lost Boys. Like, it really wasn't that great of a movie. Like, it had some things. It made vampires cool or whatever, but that's like Dracula itself was supposed to be so special because it was the first time that a vampire was represented to be intelligent. But it's actually not true. That wasn't the first time. Bram Stoker gets all the credit for it being the first time, but the first person to write about vampires, ironically, was Lord Byron. He wrote a story about a vampire that was intelligent, that was roaming around in society in London or whatever. And he just didn't finish the story. But do you remember who was with Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley and Lord Byron when they did their Geneva storytelling thing?
No, I suppose I can look it up.
There was one other guy as a doctor. That guy actually finished that vampire story. Okay. I think it's more of a novelette, and you can see it on Project Gutenberg if you're interested. And I read it. I had to. It was a moral imperative. Yeah, I can't remember. It's a doctor, but he just finished Lord Byron's work because Byron didn't finish it. And the irony is everybody thought he was a vampire. Like, it was a rumor that was floating around in his time. just whip my mic all around. All right, so it's midnight. It's almost 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a short stream. I lied. It wasn't an intentional lie, though, because I thought I would be in bed by now. So I'm going to shut down the stream.
All right.
And we can talk beyond that later on. So everybody that watched, thanks for watching. Everybody that likes, subscribe, thanks for liking and subscribing. We should be back with you Tuesday. Good night. God bless. Much love.
See ya.